Well, good morning. I'm Councilmember Janet Miller, and I'm filling in for Mayor Longwell this morning, who has some other obligations to attend to. We start this morning off with a couple of reminders about things we've mentioned before. One is the budget, and I'm happy to remind everyone that we did approve the city's budget this week. The budget is balanced, and the mill levy remains flat, and we're so pleased to have had so much public input that helped us achieve that goal. And we have staff here who have created for us what we're calling an infographic that has the highlights of the 2016 budget. Interesting facts on the front, a few more on the back, and also has a map of the different city council districts that help people identify in what district they live. And we have some of these handouts here today, but they're also available on the website for people to check out. The other thing I would mention is just to remind our readers and viewers that our Celebrate Safe Communities event is coming up on September 15th, and we encourage residents to register their block parties through the city's website. And by registering your party, you will then alert city council members, police, fire, and other entities of your party, and so we'll be able to be by and say hello and enjoy an evening out with you and your neighbors. Now, today's main topic is going to focus on a topic that we began work on last May, and it is about our plans to explore new ways to enhance water and sewer service here in Wichita. Back in May, Public Works and Utilities asked companies to submit proposals for a water and sewer utilities optimization project. And what I'd like to do this morning is to tell you a little bit about what that project entails and a little bit about what it is not. The city's looking for, in this project, engineering and finance experts to help identify risks and strengths associated with the current utility system. And what we plan to do is to bring in outside expertise to help us determine the best way to invest our resources to keep the utilities functioning at a high level for many years to come. And so we are looking outside the city to companies and experts who have done this kind of work with municipal water systems, not only in the United States, but around the world. And the project will include making sure that our infrastructure upgrades are the best investments we can make with the ratepayer dollars. All water and sewer infrastructure projects are financed, paid for with ratepayer water customer dollars, and so we have an obligation to make sure that those projects are the most efficient and the highest use projects in order to best use ratepayer dollars. This project will include a look at whether or not there might be new revenue opportunities in the current utility system that would not require or would help us minimize additional rate increases for customers. As you know, we have a series of planned increases over the next 5 to 7 years, and what we're hoping to do is figure out how we can perhaps do more work with the same or lower rate increases over the next 10 to 20 years. This would also include a review to make sure that we have the right staffing levels and skill sets to operate our systems. These days, with the regulations the way they are, our water treatment plants and sewer treatment plants, there are many requirements. The equipment is very sophisticated. Our ASR project requires special expertise, and so this project will help us evaluate whether or not we have those employees and skill sets that we need, or if we could benefit from the addition of some additional skill sets or expertise that we may not have right now in-house. The hope is that by going through this process with help from a private company, that we'll be able to gain a better understanding of the condition of our current system, as well as discover some new ways to provide reliable water and sewer service. This project might have a couple of phases. The first phase is what we'll be entering into now, and it will take about a year to complete. At the end of that year, we'll determine, based on the work that has been conducted, whether or not it might make sense to move into a phase 2. The firm that we'll be looking for will first develop a list of prioritized projects that would guide infrastructure upgrades and what should be done first. We have developed that list in-house. We have a planned list of infrastructure projects, but what we're really seeking here is some validation that we're looking at this in the most efficient way possible, and that we are indeed have the prioritized list, and if they have suggestions about how to reprioritize that, that would be very useful. A second part of the project, and this is very important, is looking at possible new financing opportunities that could help us actually do more projects faster while keeping the costs affordable. Right now with municipal bonding, there are some limitations. New financing streams may be available that would keep those costs at or below current municipal bonding, and so we would be exploring some of those opportunities. And as I mentioned, at the conclusion of this first year of work, we will look to see whether or not we would benefit from a second phase of work, but that decision will be made down the road some time from now. We have not yet selected a company. We put out the RFP in May and received responses in June, and staff and a review committee of folks outside the city who have expertise in water and sewer engineering have helped us review those proposals. We're still in that process, and we hope to select one of the firms later, maybe this month, and then begin negotiating a contract with them, and that would become available for public review probably sometime in September. That just depends on how the negotiating process goes. We've gotten a lot of questions about how this project might impact ownership of the water and sewer utilities, and so I would highlight this as one of the things that readers and viewers are most interested in. And we want to be very clear every time we talk about this subject that the city is not planning to sell or privatize the water and sewer utilities. That has been done in other places around the country with mixed results. That is not what this project is about. The City Council itself feels it's very important that the water and sewer operations continue to be owned and operated by the city itself and by our employees. And if there's any question about that, I refer people to the actual RFP, which is a public document, and there's actually a sentence in there that says exactly, the city will not forfeit any governance of the utility and will retain ownership over the assets, rate structure, and operations. So this is more about finding efficiencies and ways that we can finance additional projects at affordable costs. And secondly, another thing that it's not about is that we believe very strongly that the utilities are operated best by personnel who are employed directly by the City of Wichita and not by an outside company. So we are not looking at outsourcing operations and moving employees from being city employees to being employees of another company. That, again, is not what this project is about. So to wrap it up, as I mentioned, we hope to have a selection made here in the next few weeks, negotiate a contract, which will probably take a few weeks, and so we may have a draft contract for the public and interested people to review with it coming to the City Council probably in September, if not October. We have staff here, Ben Nelson, Manager of Strategic Services for the Public Works and Utilities, who can answer more detailed questions, but I'd be glad to take a stab, and if not, I'll call on Ben to back me up.
Janet,
Yes.
a couple of questions. So has phase one actually begun? Is that officially underway, or until the contract is actually signed, phase one would begin?
Interesting question. Yes, you have it right in the second part of what you said. Really, we are looking for a firm who would begin phase one. And that phase one would start once the contract is officially approved by the Wichita City Council.
How many responses did you guys get for RFPs?
We received 7 proposals in response to our RFPs.
Can you, I know you cannot say specifically, but can you say regions of where these proposals came from?
At this point, we can't disclose details about the proposals or the specific information about who proposed. What we can say is that we had 7 proposals we received and recently interviewed 4 of the 7 proposing firms. And as an interesting note on that, Councilmember Miller had mentioned about how the contract would eventually be available for public comment and public review prior to their consideration of it on the City Council. Public engagement is an important part of this process. Obviously, our utilities are something that our customers and our residents really value as a core service, and so it's important to us that we engage the public as a part of this. So we have a Water Utilities Advisory Committee that comprises residential, business, and wholesale customers. We had a segment of that advisory committee sit on the selection panel, and also they reviewed the proposals, they helped with the interviews, and also helped in ranking them. So we've had some public engagement be a part of the selection process.
Another question is, one of the closest cities that has done this type of partnership is Tulsa, Oklahoma. Can you kind of give a couple of things? Have you guys done a little bit more research with Tulsa? Anything along those lines?
Go ahead.
Tulsa is a city that's entered into, I believe it's an alliance approach to utility management, where they partner with an outside firm to bring in private capital and help speed up the timing of their capital projects, doing projects sooner, using alternative financing, and also looking at some efficiency of their operations. Tulsa is a nearby example. This isn't there are some other examples in different parts of the country, but this has also been an approach that's been utilized around the world. Australia, parts of Europe, for example, have really engaged some firms to do this kind of thing. So Tulsa is probably the nearest and closest example of where this has happened.
Is this something, I mean, obviously you guys said you started working on this last spring, but is this something that after this summer, several heavy rains, street flooding issues, is kind of gained more urgency?
No, I would. That is a good question, because every time we get a lot of rain, we feel better about our water availability, and we're all happy about that. But this is really looking at the longer term, 20 to 50 year outlook for the infrastructure of the system. Last fall when we were talking about a potential sales tax to finance water and sewer upgrades to help with an additional water supply, all of that work is related to this, and in previous years, we always, at any given time, have a list of needs and projects for water and sewer infrastructure, and it has become very apparent, as in many communities around the country, that funding to do all the work necessary is not adequate. Systems are aging, and Wichita is not unusual. There are cities all over the country that have 40, 50, 75-year-old infrastructure, and because it's kind of hidden, communities over time have not necessarily invested in it, and it hasn't really needed it, but now we're nearing the end of the useful life of much of that infrastructure. So this is really a project that's going to help us take a hard, detailed look at the next, at minimum 10 years, but really over the next 10 to 20 years, what are we going to need to invest? In what order should we invest? And where can those investment dollars come from? Is it still our best bet to do municipal bonding, or are there other financing opportunities at either rates that are very similar to, or where total cost could be lower because we can get the projects done more quickly than bonding them over 20 years. What we really want to make sure that the public and our customers understand is that this is a project about trying to figure out how we can maintain and upgrade our system to optimize it and to keep their rate increases no more than what we have projected over the next 5 to 7 years. As we talked about during the sales tax, if we were to do everything and we were only to do it on rates, increases, rates would increase very dramatically for customers. And what we're really trying to do is to figure out new strategies with some outside thinking, some expertise to help us avoid significant rate increases beyond what are already planned to optimize the system.
If there has to be a phase 2, what would that involve?
You want to speak to that, Ben?
Phase 2 would only be entered into with a separate contract. The contract that we're contemplating right now that would be the product of the negotiations would only be for a one-year single-phase evaluation component where they evaluate all the things Councilmember Miller's talked about. At the end of that first phase, if the team that we develop comes back and we say that we've got a very solid plan for infrastructure upgrades, for operational efficiencies, and some alternative financing mechanisms, and we can say very clearly that there's going to be a benefit to our ratepayers and our customers by a better utility system and at rates that are at least at or below the rates that have been projected already to the City Council, and we can verify that and quantify it and know with certainty that entering into that kind of partnership and implementing the plan that gets developed in Phase 1 makes sense for the city. It's at that time that's what Phase 2 would entail, would be to implement the plan that gets developed in Phase 1.
Thank you all very much for coming today. We really appreciate it. We'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. Have a great day. Enjoy the cooler weather.